Well, they're assuming they have to do the perfect work. And the perfect work for a lot of people is 60 minutes plus a day, 5 days a week. And if they can't do that, they don't do it at all. There's plenty of research that shows us that you can get a lot of good quality benefits with just 20 minutes of high intensity exercise 3 days a week. While it's not the 5 days a week, hour at a time that most people want it to be, that belief is holding you back that that's the thing that I need to do. You can get so much done in 20 minutes time if you plan accordingly, build that in the beginning of your day, and you literally will have started your day with energy.
Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Robin Schlei, and today our guest is going to get you motivated to live your best life. Jerry Scarlato has worked with thousands of people over 15 plus years in the health and fitness industry, along with 10 plus years of being an entrepreneur. Through his Goodwill Project, he has developed a 4-step process to building unstoppable self-confidence, allowing his clients to bring their best into the world. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Rodman, appreciate you so much, brother. We did a little reschedule for this one. Had some technical malfunctions on mine on that side, but as I was saying before, I appreciate so much that it happened because it made me made a move that needs to happen. As entrepreneurs know, at the end of the day, at some point you got to make a decision to take the next step, and that was a nudge to take the next step. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. You know, every once in a while we got to hit our toe on a hurdle in order to be able to pick ourselves back up and make ourselves better. So glad you're here. Really excited today to talk a little bit about our physical being and such. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, we are go, go, go. We get up in the morning, we're driving, we're doing appointments, we're doing meetings, we're doing everything. I mean, a lot of times we're wearing about a billion hats, but one of the things that we let ourselves go on is the physical side of who we are. And when you're not physically performing well, it's really hard to be good as an entrepreneur.
And that's hard to appreciate because I think a lot of entrepreneurs look at that gap, and if they're excelling, they're like, well, I'm doing pretty good. But I think that's the wrong question, right? Not that that's a question, but in their mind, they're answering the question, how good am I doing? And they look at it and they go, I'm doing pretty good. But the question is, how much better could you be doing? Or how good could you be doing? And that gap is your health and fitness. Because while it may feel like you're leaving it on the table and leaving it on the field, that's probably true. But what kind of energy level could you have if you didn't have that extra tire around your belly? If you had more energy, if your body was giving you energy instead of holding energy back. So I think the question that you ask yourself in that moment is an important question, because on one end, it will hold you back and keep you where you are, which may still be adequate. But the question is, do you want to be adequate or do you want to fulfill your potential?
Yeah. So what about that person though? And I do this all the time. I work out religiously now, but I know there's a long time in my life where it's like, I don't have time for it. I've got too many things to do. My schedule's too busy. What about that person who sits there and just says, you know what? I don't have time to do that type of work for myself.
Well, they're assuming they have to do the perfect work. And the perfect work for a lot of people is 60 minutes plus a day, 5 days a week. And if they can't do that frame, then they don't do it at all. So there's plenty of research that shows us that you can get a lot of good quality benefits with just 20 minutes of high intensity exercise 3 days a week. And that, while it's not the 5 days a week, hour at a time that most people want it to be, that frame is holding you back. That belief is holding you back that that's the thing that I need to do. You can get so much done in 20 minutes time if you plan accordingly, if you set yourself the time accordingly, and then you actually build it into your day, 20 minutes you can build in the morning, and you can build it in, or you can build it in at night, or you can build that in at lunch. All you have to do is maybe wake up 20 minutes earlier, build that in the beginning of your day, and you literally will have started your day with energy. You know this, you work out first thing in the morning. When you start your day using energy, your body will then give you energy. It doesn't take it away from you. Your body will actually open it up for you. So my challenge to that person who's like, hey, I just can't do it. I just don't have the time for it. It's changing the frame of what time looks like to you, or what the outcome looks like to you, or what the process looks like to you is a better way to say it. If you just understand that you can get a lot done in 15, 20 minute time frame, 3 days a week, and you start with that. Maybe it doesn't have to stay that. You can always upgrade. You can always do something different. But if you start with just a 15 to 20 minute workout 3 days a week, you will be absolutely astounded at the energy shifts that happen, at the physical shifts that happen, and then on the other end, the outcome shifts that happen, because your output will then start to increase.
So what do you think about that person who's sitting there going, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. I mean, I'm talking about that person who's like, well, I'm not going to get up and just pump iron first thing in the morning, that kind of thing. But maybe they get to that point, but there's nothing wrong, I think, with, starting out. Maybe I just do a walk. Maybe I do a 15 to 20 minute walk, and then maybe that becomes a 25-minute walk, or maybe I start to pick up the intensity, and then I start building into things. I think a lot of people come in and they say, well, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this 5 days a week. I'm going to do it 30 minutes a day. And they come out of the gates and they either do a little too much out of the gates, and I don't want to say hurt themselves, but when you really haven't been working out for a while and you start getting back into it, say pumping some iron, you can have some soreness to you. And if you don't work through that, that's, I think, when people just say, I'm going to just quit.
So here's the way I like to, that was a great explanation, by the way. Here's the way that I like to think about that, is that whenever you're first starting, you want to start as frequently as possible, but with as little aggression as possible. Said another way, you want to do it often so that it becomes a habit, but you don't want to go too hard so that you don't hurt yourself, because that's very real. Exactly what you said, especially in the weight room. Guys men especially have a tendency to want to jump in the weight room and be their 15-year-old self in the weight room immediately right off the bat. And while there's a high potential that you can work back to that if you put enough effort in over time, you're not going to do it in the beginning. It's just not going to be the case. And if you try, you will definitely hurt yourself, either in the short term, meaning tearing a muscle, hurting a ligament or something to that effect, or developing, which is kind of worse, some sort of chronic issue, some sort of chronic tendonitis, tendinosis, or something to that effect. We've all, you get started too fast and you start getting all these aches and pains and whatnot. A lot of that is from starting at too high of an intensity. So the question is, again, how often can you start? Because the more often you can start, the better. And then where is your level that you can start, that you need to start at, that you feel good about it, but you don't feel dead by the end of it? Because you want to be able to make progress the next day. And if you feel dead by the end of it, most of the time, you will eventually quickly not be able to make progress the next day, because you won't be able to move, because you just won't feel good. And that feeling eats at your mind and tells your mind, well, I guess I'm just too old for this. And then you start coming up with other excuses. I'm too old. Maybe I don't have the time. You'll find some other excuse that's not true, but you'll rationalize it in that way. So find the consistency that you can stick with. That's important. Stick with the consistency, but then find the barrier of entry and make the barrier of entry lower than you think it is. And then every 2 weeks, slowly notch that intensity up just a little bit so that your body adapts. That's the point, is letting your body adapt. As an entrepreneur, you know this intuitively when it comes to your business. As soon as you implement something, it doesn't immediately come to fruition. You don't immediately see fruit. It takes time. It takes time to see fruit. Your body is the exact same way. While you'll start to feel better pretty soon if you start moving, for your body to actually start to get stronger and get sustainable energy and growth, it takes time to see that fruit happen. So it is a lot of a mind game, but you don't want to get in that situation, what you're talking about, overdoing it in the beginning.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like people too, when they go out, even that 20-minute, 30-minute walk, whatever it might be, might cause them a little bodily pain, right? I mean, it depends on where you're at. Maybe you haven't done it for a while. Maybe you haven't been moving for a while. But once you start to get back into it, you've got to be able to work through those pain points. Like you said, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur or starting a business. In the beginning, there's going to be pain points, but you've got to keep working up to the next curve in the road, right? That next opportunity or that next chance to take yourself up a step. And so when I know with myself, and again, I work out pretty religiously, but I was at a point too where I really wanted to make some big change. So I'm sure you're familiar with 75 Hard. So I went to the 75 Hard program and said, you know what, I'm going to step up my game. I'd been doing about 60 minutes a day is about where I was at. So I moved it over to the 245 minutes that they wanted per day. And I got through 75 days in a row. I got through my 75 Hard. Then I said, well, what if I went 76? Well, what if I went 77? I ended up doing that program for 537 days in a row. And then I hurt myself. Then my back went out. I couldn't do what I used to do. It took me about 2.5 months to recover. I was trying to go for 2 years. I hated that I hit that little hurdle in the road. But at the same time, when I came back, even after 2.5 months off and started working out again, I started back at 60 minutes and I still hurt. I hurt from the stuff that I hadn't done for 2.5 months. So there's always going to be these pain points when you're starting into something new when it comes to your physical being.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on doing that often. So many people struggle just with the 45 minutes, but to be able to do 2 45-minute workouts in a day for, what'd you say, 500 something days?
537 was my streak.
Yeah, congratulations on that. That's a big deal, Rodman. That's a big deal, to be sure. The body only takes 72 hours for the body to start to decondition. So that's why I say getting at least 3 days a week in is imperative, because when you get 2 days a week in, there's going to be a 72-hour gap somewhere where your body is going to start to decondition. And when I say start to decondition, a lot of people think I go back to zero. That's not what's happening, but your body will start to creep backwards slowly. It's a slow decline, but it'll start to slowly creep backwards. So with you were off 2.5 months. So you had a lot of 72-hour time frames in there. Your body was deconditioning after just 3 days. So after 6 weeks of that, there's a lot of deconditioning that happens. The beautiful thing that does happen whenever you train, and this is what kills so many people. When you train and then you take some amount of time off that's less than, say, 6 months, and you go back to it, you get back to where you were quicker than than it initially took you to get there. So if you've been training for 5 years and you took 3 months off because you had an injury, whenever you get started, it doesn't take you 5 years to get back to where you were. It might take you 5 months, but it doesn't take you 5 years, because your body adjusted and adapted to that ability. So with you, I'm sure when you got back, just off the top of your head, how long do you think it took you to be able to get to 80% of where you were?
For me, I just literally got back into my routine 2 weeks ago, right? And it's funny how quickly your body goes backward versus when you're trying to take it forward, right? It seems like the digression is a lot quicker, but at the same time, when I started getting back into it, I could already feel the muscle composition coming back a lot quicker than when I started, the program way back when. So I could tell just when you said that, the first thing that I thought is, well, that's exactly what's happening, because I can already feel my muscle composition rebounding really quickly.
That's what I say, like, that kills so many people's progress, because it's not unusual for something to pop up in life. You have a career change, you have a kid, you have to move from one end of the country to the other, and you have to take some amount of time off. And it's also not unusual for that to stop people from going in, because they're like, well, I don't want to have to go back in and start over. Well, you're not starting over, you're starting lower, but it's not going to take you long to get back to where you were. So as long as you get back in, don't immediately try to start where you stopped, which it sounds like you didn't, but you still felt the aches and pains, which I'll get to that in a second. But allow yourself to adapt back up, and you'll find that you'll be able to rebound much quicker than you think. So don't convince yourself that you can't do it because you have to take some time off. Once you get that time off, once you can get back in and go back at it. Drop your intensity back down just a little bit. Keep it there for 2 weeks, nudge it back up, keep it there for 2 weeks, and slowly nudge it back up so your body adapts again. And you'll be amazed at how quickly you'll get back to where you were. But to go back to your point real quick about filling the aches and pains, again, when you think about that 72-hour decondition period, that's essentially what's happening is as you decondition, your tendons and stuff are unadapting to what you've done. Aches and pains also come from whenever you just change something. I've been training for 25 years in the weight room. If I go do a new exercise and I do it just one time in a workout for like 3 sets of 10, I'll be sore the next day. So it's both a level of intensity and a different stimulus. So if you have a different kind of exercise or a different form of exercise, you go from running to lifting weights, or you go from walking on flat pavement to walking through trails, rocky trails. Like that transition is a different stimulus for your body. So it's important to understand that as well, and that it's normal to feel some level of discomfort, but you don't want that to go too high like we've talked about already.
Yeah, and it's good to have a little bit of discomfort, right? You want to have a little bit. If you're not feeling a little bit of pain, you're probably not growing your muscle composition.
There's a lot of truth to that, most definitely. And so when I was a meathead back in the day, I think I'm still a meathead. I just like to pretend like I'm a wiser meathead, if you will. But back in the day, like loved to lift weights. I was about 40 pounds heavier, 240, I think was my highest weight. So I lifted heavy. I played football in college and I loved to do it. And that was our mentality, right? If I didn't walk away from the gym with soreness, then I didn't get anything out of the gym. Now, there's an extreme version of that, and then there's the real version of that. The extreme version is if I can't move the next day, then I didn't do well. If I don't have some level of intense soreness, then I didn't do well. And that's extreme because you can be too sore and it can be counterproductive. It can be a negative instead of a positive. So you don't want to get to the point where you wake up the next day and you can't walk down the stairs. You don't want that, at least on a regular basis. But soreness is adaptation. Soreness means your body is adapting to the stimulus. So a level of soreness is telling you that you're doing something correctly. And that range, I like a 0 to 10 scale whenever we're talking about levels of soreness. I owned a training facility for 10 years, and when our members would come in, we'd say, hey, on a scale of 0 to 10, how sore are you from your previous workout? If they were above a 7, then we knew we had to scale it back a little bit so that they didn't maintain that level 7. But if you're staying maybe around a level 3 to 5, then you're in a good range. So that's a scale to kind of keep in your mind whenever you're thinking about how sore you are.
I always think too, since we're talking a lot about kind of the fitness side with entrepreneurship, there are so many different parallels also. Like, being an entrepreneur is a grind. It's tough. It's not easy. There's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of problems that you got to solve. You're constantly getting up every day and doing. And you're always working hard to set up that next day or to be a little bit better that next day. And I always feel like your physical fitness is a lot like that, where it's going to be hard, where there's going to be grinds. But if you can sit there and do one thing, I think it helps the other. I think there's this mental thing to it. Like for me, I know when I get up and I'm able to accomplish a workout, I'm able to take care of my body. I get through something. I know that then I'm going to get through a whole bunch of other things on my entrepreneurial journey during the day. And then at the end of the day, I'll also do my second workout. And so then I feel like I've got some bookends, where I've completed a full day, where I've taken care of my business, I've taken care of my body, and I've also taken care of my mind along the way. So there are a lot of great things in terms of your achievements that are going to roll over into your entrepreneurship and into your business journey.
So there's a saying in business that I'm sure you know well, that the biggest roadblock in a business is the owner. And it really comes down to the owner's mindset and the owner's perception of what's possible, both with the business and with themselves. Of course, you can talk about things that an owner is overlooking as far as changes that need to be made, but nonetheless, it comes down to what the owner believes that the business is capable of and what the owner believes they themselves as an individual is capable of. And one of the best ways to grow your belief in yourself and what you believe you're capable of, I believe, is in the weight room. But exercise in general is one of the best ways to do that. Because as you change and as you grow and as you achieve a different level of something different, you run a mile a little faster, you run a little further than a mile, you run 2 miles, or you go from bench pressing to 100 pounds to 110 pounds to 130 pounds. As you start to do that, your belief in yourself literally will start to grow and expand. So if we can understand that one of the biggest limiting factors on a person in life is self-confidence and their belief in themselves, if you jump into exercise and you can understand the huge impact that exercise can have on that and how that will then translate to every other part of your life, then you'll have a greater appreciation definitely for that exercise. But yeah, I believe especially the weight room, because here's the thing, the weight room doesn't lie. Weights will not lie to you. You can either move them or you can't move them. So on one end, you can try, and if you don't make it, you can go, okay, I know that I have to do this kind of work in order to make that happen. And you can figure that plan out in your head to be able to get there. And then when you get there, you can build the self-confidence that you got there. So 2 things you've developed in that. You've developed the ability to problem solve because you can go, I didn't bench press 100 pounds, but I know if I start with 80 and I do that for 2 weeks, and then I do 90 and I do that for 2 weeks, then I can get to 100. Then you problem solve. And then you reached it, and then you build the self-confidence off of being able to reach it. So there's just so many things that are intertwined in exercise and in life and in entrepreneurship that not doing it almost is like you're like having a deficit in your life and you're actively keeping that deficit.
You know, I see another thing too, a lot of times, Jerry, is where people will be like, they go into a gym situation or they think they got to compete with other people. They see these other people training and doing their thing and I got to compete with them. And then if they don't, they'll just say, well, I'm out. I'm not good enough. I'll quit. When in reality, you're not competing with anybody. When you're working out and when you're taking care of your physical being, it's all about you. It's 100% about you pushing yourself, your personal best. How far can you go? How fast can you run? And unfortunately, what I see a lot of times is people go, well, I'm just not good enough for this. And it doesn't matter. I mean, like you said, you could be a bit overweight right now, but you really want to try. It's not about what other people are doing at that point. It's about you taking the first steps and starting to walk on your journey.
I think there's 2 parts to that. You have to do it for you no matter what. I'll start with that. You have to do it for you no matter what. Whenever you get to the point where you're doing something for somebody else, it's not going to be sustainable. It would not be a sustainable journey if you're doing it for somebody else. So you have to do it for you no matter what. And that looks like starting where you are and then paying attention to all of the little wins that you have along the way. If you're currently 40 pounds overweight and you wear a, 45 waist pant, and then in a month you go from a 45 to a 43 waist pant, that's a win. If you can't bend over and tie your shoes, these are things that I see normally in 45-year-old men and women for that matter. But if you can't bend over and tie your shoes normally, and then all of a sudden you can, those are wins. And that's you paying attention to yourself. That's you recognizing that you're getting better, you're progressing, you're continuing to improve and building that self-confidence along the way. On the other end, I believe it's still important to have people around you. Actually, there's some statistics that I can't remember off the top of my head. I had an interview on my podcast last week of the owner of Alloy Fitness franchises. His name is Rick Mayo. He's been in the personal training industry for 25 or 30 years or something like that. And his retention over time is something like his average member stays for like 3.5 years or
Holy
something
cow.
like that. Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's something just absolutely ridiculous. But they do like a small group personal training setting where there's 5 to 6 people in a group and you're there. And that's a great setting because you have you and you can see what you're doing, but you're not lost in a crowd in a sea of people. But you can also see Tommy over there. And Tommy, he's doing something. And you can go, hey, Tommy, how long have you been here? Well, I've been here for about a year. Well, where'd you start? Well, I started where you are. And then in your mind, you can go, well, that means that I can get there. That means I'm going to be able to do that at some point if I just keep going. So I think there's an art to using other people, not as competition and going, oh, I'm not going to be as good at that person as that person ever. But recognizing where you are and being able to look at them and time travel yourself into the future, if you will, and go, I can get to that if I stick with it. If I know that Tommy's been here for a year and he started where I am 50 pounds overweight, and now he looks like that, I know I can get there. So I think there's magic in having people around you, but there's an art in knowing how to use the people around you to fuel you instead of kill you.
You know, sometimes we can aimlessly drift through our life, not really sure how to break the patterns and live the life that you've always dreamed of. I get it. I have been there, so caught up in chasing opportunities until I found myself in a life that felt foreign to me. It took me years to unwind the messy web to get back to what I've been put on this planet to do. And let me tell you this, purpose doesn't have to feel out of arm's reach. And I designed a plan for you to do a little bit each day over the next 30 days in a challenge that I call the Outlier 30. It's specifically designed to help you find or create more clarity around your purpose. So if you're feeling lost and you want to finally turn things around and live that life that you were destined to create, sign up right now. It's free. You have absolutely nothing to lose and the whole world to gain.
Visit gorodman.com/outlier30 today.
That's great advice. Great advice. And it seems to me too that like our physical being has so much impact on our mindset. Also, I know that 2.5 months when I was down with my injury, it had an impact on me upstairs. It impacted, since I wasn't working out, I wasn't feeling as good. I wasn't feeling as energetic. I hurt. And in return, my mindset was impacted because of that. And, it's a spiraling effect where when you physically start to spiral, I think your mindset starts to spiral. But as you go the other way, as you start to lift yourself up and get yourself physically ready for the challenges you have in life, you're also that's a new word. You're also going to be mentally able to take on new challenges and just feel so much better upstairs with your mindset.
I have this belief that human beings are built for progress. They're built to improve. And they're built to move. And the connection between your brain and your body is a very real connection. It's a biological, anatomical, it is a built-in connection. So when you're not moving, you literally will have a level of angst because you're not moving, because you're not doing what your body is meant and built to do. The human body is literally, I like to call it the Swiss Army knife of movement. It can do so many things. A human can run, a human can jump, a human can spin, a human can lift weights, a human can carry weights. It can do all these things outside of fly. It's the only thing for some reason we aren't able to do is fly. Probably the funnest of them, but nonetheless, it is what it is. But if you look at a cheetah can run fast, but that's all it can do. An eagle can fly high, but that's all it can do. Human beings can do it can do so much. But all of us, the average person sits 8 hours a day, and that's increasing, not decreasing. And so they're not using the thing that literally they were given to create in this world. Your body is what your mind thinks, and then your body does the doing. So if you're not feeding the body, you're not feeding the mind in a proper, nourishing way. So that connection between what you feel, my mindset starts to drain. I start to feel a little more angst. I start to feel a little more anxiety when I'm sitting around and so forth. That connection is very real. What does someone say after they've had a hard day? Well, I need to go out. I need to go work out. I need to go for a walk. Just give me a sec. I need to go for a walk. Why do you say that? Because movement equals a healthy mindset. So that's a very real connection.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like too, when I am hitting a wall, or when my thought process is slowing down, I go do a walk. I come up with my most brilliant ideas and my best thinking when I'm actually doing that walk, when I'm out there doing it. I mean, I come back to the office and come back here and start working, and I've got so many good ideas after I've done, that whatever 60-minute walk or whatever people want to take. It's a stimulus for good thought.
Again, it's a very real connection. The mind-body connection is very real. And also I would add to that, being in nature as much as possible, if that is your ideal. Like if you're trying to develop ideas or clarify something in your mind or something to that effect, being in nature is an added benefit to that. So if you can go walk around trees, or you can go walk in a trail, because the combination of your body moving, which is literally stimulating creativity in your mind, and the randomness of nature, that combination will help build creative ideas in your mind. The randomness of nature is actually what makes it calming and creative for us, which is ironic because we live in a world of, 90-degree angles or 45-degree angles, I guess, 90-degree angles. And, it's a very structured world. But it is the randomness out in nature that actually gives us a level of creativity. And when you add on top of that the movement, then your creativity can actually increase and your problem solving can actually increase.
For me, I'm not going to lie. When I actually injured myself after that big run I had on the 75 hard, it was actually, I was out on my walk and I walked past this gentleman who had a dog. The dog was on a leash, but the dog came back and he clamped down on my hamstring. He bit me, and my hamstring, folded. It basically, I don't know what you'd call that, if it cramped up or whatever you might call it. But that had a whole impact. It's funny how one thing is an impact on your entire body, but it hurt there, and then it ended up throwing my back out because everything got out of whack. But I think a lot about people who have stuff like migraines all the time, right? People that they don't have a choice. I might be subjected to migraines, or I might have other ailments in me that make it very difficult for me to perform. But people like that don't have choices in that. Yeah, sometimes they'll get that migraine and it might limit their thinking. It might limit what they can do. But so many people, most people have the choice to be healthy. Most people have the choice not to have these things happening to them. And they're not making the choice just to go, I'm going to go get that walk in. I'm going to go do this. What would you tell that person who is sitting there maybe at square one, sitting there going, well, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. What would you say, Jerry? Would you say, hey, start here, go do this?
First, eliminate the idea of perfection, because we are perfectionists at heart. Even if you don't consider yourself a perfectionist, most people don't follow through with things because they can't do them perfectly. So very first thing we talked about, eliminate your idea of perfection. The very next thing is decide what's the amount of time you're willing to allot, and then just go walk. Like literally, if you just start with walking and slowly progress yourself up into walking a little faster, and then progress to walking a little further, and then maybe progress into running if you want to, and then maybe progress to something else. It's literally just a matter of starting with the amount of time that you can do, that you're willing to set aside, whatever that is. No judgment, no perfection, whatever that time frame is, and then picking the activity that you want to do, and then doing it. There's no perfect. There is the activity that you want to do and you will tolerate or enjoy, because please understand that everybody who exercises does not love it all the time. There are plenty of days when I get up and I'm like, I got to go work out today because today's the day that I normally work out. I may not be motivated to do it, but I got to go do it because on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock in the morning, I go and I lift weights, and that's what I do. So it has to be something that you enjoy or tolerate most of the time, and then just do it. Start at a level of intensity that is low enough that you're not getting hurt, but not so low that you're not making progress.
I would say too, there's a lot of things that you could be doing sport-wise, activity-wise. I know I grew up with sports. I love playing sports. One of the things that I picked up when I was 38 years old, I'd never ice skated before, but I went and learned how to play ice hockey.
Yeah.
And I'm 54 now. I still play, ice hockey 1 to 2 nights a week where I'll go out and it's a great workout. But a lot of things too are age dependent. I know that when we're talking about, some of the things we can do and we can't do anymore. I always say that the second that I can't go, when I come off the ice, the second that I can't go over the boards to get off the ice, I'm going to hang up my hockey skates, right?
That's when it's time.
And I'll find something else. But there's always something for somebody, whether you're 60 years old, whether you're 40, whether you're 30, but it's just finding the right thing for you.
It has to be sustainable. And that's what it really comes down to. It's just like diets. The keto diet comes out, and then the carnivore diet comes out, and then fasting comes out, and then the watermelon diet comes out, and we try all these different diets, and it's like, which one should I do? It's the wrong question. The question is always, what's the thing you're going to be able to stick to? And when it comes to exercise, while I certainly have biases as far as like the most effective, that doesn't matter. What are you going to be able to stick to? Because any movement is better than no movement. Always. All the time, always. The answer is any movement is better than no movement. And if that's ice hockey, that's ice hockey. That's a great form of exercise. Any sport, even pickleball, and I don't say even as in like downplaying it, but like pickleball is a great, like go out and play or run around, hit the racket, like go do that, go walk, whatever the thing is that is going to make you do it, that you can do, that you enjoy most of the time, and that you'll do regularly. And make it different. Do sports on Monday and Friday and walk on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And on the weekends, you just play. You just go have a good time. You go for a hike on Saturday and you go for a longer walk on Sunday. So it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. And it doesn't have to be the newest fad. As a matter of fact, most of the time I would tell you to stay away from the newest fad because it hasn't been tested yet on whether or not it's really effective. So what's the thing you're going to do? That's really what it comes down to. And that goes with diet and exercise.
It is really, really tough these days to dissect the information. What's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. Somebody will tell you something's great for you. You'll start into it. And then about a month later, it's like, that's horrible for you. It's just this up and down of really trying to battle. And I like what you said there about really kind of find out what works for you and what's best for you. But the one thing that we haven't really touched on and talked about is you've got exercise and you do have diet. And I know we haven't talked a lot about diet. And sometimes people will do the exercise, but they won't take on the diet part, or they take on the diet part and they're not exercising. But I really feel like if you can put those two things together, and I don't even like to use the word diet. I mean, that sounds like negative. It sounds like, well, I'm going to go on a diet. No, going on a diet is very different than watching your diet, making sure that you're looking at what you're putting into your body, right? So what do you tell that person, though, who is looking there going, okay, I'm going to get my exercise right? What kind of suggestions would you have for them to go, okay, I'm going to get what I eat right? We'll call it diet, but getting what you eat right.
We already talked about the fads. And here's the thing when it comes to any kind of fad diet is that they all work. They all work. Keto diet works. Fasting works. I don't know. There's so many of them.
Tapeworm diet.
Yes. Gonna be a little uncomfortable, but it'll work. But they all work. Most of them are not sustainable. So the first question to ask yourself whenever you're starting, especially when it comes to nutrition changes, is am I going to be able to do this for the rest of my life? For the rest of my life. And if you can answer that with a pretty strong yes, doesn't have to be a definitive yes, because remember, you can change it. You're allowed to change at some point. But if you can answer that with a mostly yes, then it's probably a good choice. The keto diet is going to be a no for everybody. For every normal human being on earth, the answer is going to be no. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So that's the first question to look at is how long can I do this? Can I do this maybe at least for a year? How about that to make it more time compact? Can I do this for at least a year? And if you can answer yes, then okay, we're on a good path. We got a good path. The next step is changing your mindset from this is a diet to this is my life. This is what I eat. Because we have the belief that we do diets. Well, I'm on a diet now. And then when I'm off the diet, I'm off the diet. I eat the normal standard American diet. Sad. If you put that together, it is very sad, by the way. I eat the normal standard American diet. If I'm not dieting, if I am dieting, then I'm miserable and I'm not happy. So whenever you make a change, it is just what you do. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing now. So changing that in your mind, that is so important. I'm glad you brought that up, because it will not be a sustainable part of your life until or unless you make it part of your life. And that comes with answering the first question, can I do this for at least a year?
Well, and if you're going to be working on your body, you want to make sure you're feeding it right too. I start with that walk, get out there and get moving. But also if you start putting the right things in there, for me, I don't do any diets, but I do track my calories. I do make sure that I'm getting the protein in my body that I want. I keep a moderate level of carbs, for me. And then I try to keep a really low amount of saturated fats and try to only let in those good fats. And I don't think of it as a diet. I just say, this is how I eat. This is my life. This is how many calories. When I'm trying to do some cutting, I might bring my calories down a little bit. When I'm trying to bulk a little bit, I might just bring those calories up a bit. But in terms of my macronutrients and such, I just try to keep them about the same, whether I'm cutting or I'm trying to put on a little bit of muscle.
That's a very good point. I'm really glad you brought that up. You're bringing up some great points, by the way. Macronutrients is a good thing to understand, because those are the things that you manipulate in order to make some changes in your life. Most people have either heard that fats make you fat or that carbs make you fat. Right now, it's carbs that are the villain, sugars specifically that are the villain. And really when it comes down to it, it is when you combine them, and especially when you combine them in a processed manner, that's what makes people fat. And it's generally the vast overconsumption of those things that make you fat, because they're literally made to fit what's called the bliss point. That's what the food industry calls it. The bliss point is the perfect combination of fat and sugar and salt and texture. So if you pick out like a potato chip, that texture is on purpose, and that combination of saltiness and a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of fatness is on purpose. It was built in a lab, and it was built like that on purpose so that you would want to eat more of it. So it's generally those kinds of things that make us fat and make us put on weight easily, because we overconsume them easily and our body digests them easily. But if you can understand macronutrients, and you can understand that protein is the most important one to really focus on, and that if you hit your protein goal most days and you stay within a range on the other two most days, that 9 times out of 10, you're going to find yourself eventually in a good body weight. So a good protein goal for most people, I would say for all people, is about 0.75 to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
That's a lot of protein too, Jerry.
It is a lot of protein. It definitely is. Here's what happens. Here's why this is important. And we didn't even talk about this with the exercise part. The thing that kills, literally, physically kills most people over the age of 65 that don't get a chronic disease, they don't die from a chronic disease, in other words. The thing that kills most people over the age of 65 is falling down. Because of decrepitude, essentially, because of weak bones and weak muscles, no strength and no density in their bones. Two things that promote strong bones and strong muscles. Weightlifting promotes both strong bones and strong muscles, and high protein intake promotes strong muscles. Kind of strong bones, but mostly strong muscles. It allows for a thing called protein synthesis, meaning your muscles are basically turning over and find a reason to stay. They find a reason to stick around, instead of, if you do nothing and don't lift any weights and don't eat a moderate to low level of protein, your muscles will atrophy or they will go away. And that's what causes people to be unstable as they age and to fall. And when they fall, to have severe injury because of that. So that's why a higher level of protein is important, especially as you age, because as you age, you need technically more protein because your body doesn't assimilate it as well. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely it does.
And that's why that's so important.
Well, and I think too, we're living longer and longer. I mean, especially now that you got science doing what it's doing, you got AI technologies that are coming in, we're going to be living longer and longer in life. And if we're not taking care of our muscle masses now, if we're not taking care of our bones now, what good is it going to be living a longer life, right? So I always tell people, I'm 54, going to be 55 this year. And for me, it's just about, okay, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep building my muscle tone, making sure that I'm keeping good muscle on, and I'm moving myself forward. Because when I get to be 80, 90, whatever I might be blessed to live, I still want to be physically able to be there for my kids, or to have myself in a place where I haven't let myself go to the point where I shouldn't probably be here anyway.
That's the difference between lifespan and health span. Most people focus on lifespan. I want to live a little longer. And we're at a place right now where we're going to be able to continue to extend our lifespan pretty good over the next couple of years, like you said, with all the developments that are coming up. The question is, how quality are those years going to be? Because the average person, their quality of life starts to degrade around 50 years old. 50 to 55 years old, their quality of life starts to go down because of this thing
wait a
called
minute,
aging.
that's my age. Hold on, slow down.
Brother, you look great. You look great for 54. But here's the difference. There's this thing called aging. And most people succumb to aging instead of control aging. If you look around, the average 70-year-old is bent over, can't move well, shuffles, that kind of thing. That is succumbing to aging. The body will atrophy and will literally curl up over time because you don't use it. We form to the chair, if you will, because what do most people do? They sit 8 hours a day, and when you retire, you sit more on average. So you literally conform to the chair. Your muscles literally conform to that structure. And then your muscles atrophy, they get smaller. So your mobility is going down, your stability is going down, your strength's going down, your power is going down, your muscles all going down, all only primarily because you're not using them. Now, if you can understand that it's right around the age of 60 to 65 when that decline really starts to happen, that if you're doing something about it, that decline is going to be much, 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 much slower for you, and your quality of life, your health span will extend. Then that may actually push you to start doing something about it, because you can change this at any time. At any age, you can change this and decide to make a change in your life. But that's why some people look better when they age versus look like I said, they look like a chair when they age. They look hunched over and they can't straighten their legs out and so on. A lot of that is primarily just because they're not using their body and they're not keeping themselves mobile. They're not weightlifting. They're not running. They're not doing whatever. So that more rapid decline starts around 60 or 65 years old. And the sooner you can start to get on top of that, the better. But you can start at any time. If you're 65 and you haven't trained in a long time, don't go, oh, I guess I can't do it. No, you can still do something. You can still do it. You can still fight it. You just have to decide to start doing it.
Yeah. Jerry, you and I could talk about this all day long. I love this stuff because, it's such a big part of my life. And, entrepreneurs out there, I want them to have this same thing. I want them to feel the effects of what your fitness and what you do to your body have on your business. I mean, there's such a correlation between the two, but then we don't even think about it. Well, they think, well, it's entrepreneurship and it's working out. What the heck? But, if you're going to get your mind right, you got to also get your body right. Same thing, to have your body right, you got to get your mind right. And then you're going to be so much better in everything that you're doing. But I want to make sure that people know where to find you. So I want them to be able to come to you for more information if they want more information. Where do you want people to go if they want to find you, Jerry?
So you can find me on Instagram very easily at Jerry Scarlato. I also have a podcast myself. The website for that is goodwolfproject.us. I have a PDF there for called the Self-Confidence Cycle PDF, where you can put in your email and start to build your self-confidence up. Like I said, that's the limiting factor for most of us is going to be our confidence level.
Awesome. And then one last question of the day. I ask this to everybody who comes on the podcast, but if you could go back in time and give your younger self your best piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Don't let yourself be limited by other people's beliefs. Don't let yourself be limited by other people's beliefs. And I'll unpack that just a little bit because that's another deep conversation. But we allow the ideas and beliefs of other people to limit us because we're worried about their judgment, or we're worried about looking dumb, or we're worried about, falling on our face or whatever. If you can understand that no one's really paying that much attention to you in the first place, and all they're trying to do ever is protect their own ego, then there's a good chance you'll actually be able to overcome that tendency.
Awesome. Love it. Jerry, give me a little flex before we go.
Boom,
yeah. Baby. Hey, thanks for being on the show today, Jerry. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Robin. I appreciate you too, brother.